Hey everybody, how you doing? This is DeKeither Stamps. We got a great show lined up for you today. I'm excited about all the things that we got going on. So sit back, relax, and enjoy. We're about to go live on 90.1 FM. So all of our first-time viewers, go ahead and hit the heart button. All of our returning viewers, go ahead and hit the like button and share the video to your respective social media outlets. If you're tuning in on Facebook and to Twitter and YouTube and all that stuff, if you're there, go ahead and share the video because we're going to be having a great show today, great conversation. The call-in number is 601-948-5950. Woo, it's going to be a good show today. So y'all sit back, relax, and enjoy. We all come on in the space, and we getting ready to rock and roll. Yep, I'm excited. Sprayed the studio down today. We are safe, and we're ready to rock and roll. So sit back, relax, and enjoy. We'll be on live in just a second. Yeah. Good evening, everyone. Welcome to another edition of Reviving Mississippi. I'm your host, DeKeither Stamps. We got a great show lined up for you today. As we start off every week, we always say, please keep the families that are going through bereavement in your prayers. Please keep those family members close to you, those friends. Let them know that they have a friend in you by being present. A lot of times you don't have to solve folks' problems. You can just be there, and comfort them. And in days like this, times like this, you got different things going on with children and, death and viruses and just life problems in general. Be a friend so you can have a friend in your time of need. Definitely sending again our hearts and prayers go out to Sheriff Vance's family and the whole community, because that was something that hit everyone very, very hard. And so I just want to make sure that everybody keeps those families and all families who are going through bereavement in your prayers, because it's a rough time right now for folks going through, everybody going through that. So please keep in your prayers. Our sponsors for today's show are the National Wildlife Federation. We appreciate Ms. Simone Lightfoot and the whole team at the National Wildlife Federation and the African American Mayors Association for expanding the conversation that we've had here for looking at what we've been doing over the last 8 years with this program of Reviving Mississippi, and bringing in other leaders from around the country to share with us. So we appreciate National Wildlife Federation for that. Also, Michael Jordan at Michael Jordan Transportation Service. We appreciate that wonderful brother for always, just coming by and saying, hey, how can I help? How can I serve in the community? So we appreciate Mr. Michael Jordan over at Michael Jordan Transportation Service. You can go to www.mjstransportation1.com for your transportation needs and employment. He's always looking for good people. They're expanding all the time, but go to www.mjstransportation1.com for your transportation needs. And also, we got a great young man that's going to be coming on the show today. Mayor Eugene Grant. Let me pull him up on the screen here. We get Mayor Grant on the screen here. Mayor Grant, how you doing today, sir?
Doing great, Delegate, doing great. Good to be with you today. Thank you so much.
Mayor Eugene Grant has been leading the city of Seat Pleasant, Maryland, a smart city of excellence through successful, innovative methods and providing executive municipal leadership since 2004. In 2017, Mayor Grant signed an agreement with IBM to build a $30 million cloud-based intelligent operations center in the city of Seat Pleasant, a smart city of excellence. This multi-year endeavor will evaluate Seat Pleasant to become the first authentic small smart city in the world. In addition to this significant accomplishment, Mayor Grant successfully petitioned the United States Department of Agriculture to designate Seat Pleasant as a rural community, potentially giving the city access to millions of dollars of federal grants and funding because of the mayor's continual efforts. he is currently using $4.1 million in rural development financing to remodel City Hall and maintenance buildings into smart buildings. Mayor Grant has automated the city's finance department, increasing accountability and transparency to the citizens. Seat Pleasant is also the first small city in the state of Maryland to utilize budgeting for outcomes, which has improved the effectiveness and efficiency of the finance department. His leadership created the opportunity for Seat Pleasant to become the first city in the country to obtain security clearance to fly police drones and no-fly zones at the nation's capital, over the nation's capital, optimizing the city's ability to provide better safety in the region during times of uncertainty. As the principal promoter for Seat Pleasant, a smart city of excellence, Mayor Grant has presented his vision for a center of innovation, information, and investment in front of some of the world's leading tech companies, emerging tech companies, and specializing in the Internet of Things and potential impact and social impact investors and angel investors. In 2017, Mayor Grant has promoted the city as a model for other small cities, towns, and villages across the United States and at the United Nations headquarters in New York, and has spoken at panels at Smart Cities Week in California and Washington, D.C., and with the American Associations of Blacks in Energy. Presented the first ever TEDx Talk presentation in the history of Maryland Municipal Summer Conference, and presented potential strategic partnerships with Harrisburg University and Oklahoma University to continue to build upon the foundation of establishing Seat Pleasant as a smart city of excellence. I know there's a whole lot to say for a good brother who is doing great work out there in Maryland. And I just want to make sure we fully introduce you properly, Mayor Grant. So welcome to the show.
No, I'm very honored to be with you, Delegate Stamps, and greatly appreciate being with somebody such as yourself. And let me start off and say thank you to you as well for your service to the American people in the United States military and protecting and serving our country around the world. So we appreciate and applaud your efforts and what you have done for us in the United States. So thank you, sir. And we are honored to be with you.
Well, great. So, Mayor Grant, I know I gave the biography that was printed by somebody in City Hall, but tell us a little bit about yourself, and then we'll move into your city. A little bit about your background, your upbringing, and then we'll move into some of the things that you've instituted over the 17 years of service of being mayor in Seat Pleasant.
Well, there's not much to say, and then there's a whole lot to say, right? Yeah, you lived on this earth for 50 some years. There's a lot you can say, but let me just allow the audience to understand that, first of all, I believe in God. And so everything that I do is based upon my belief in God and my service to fellow human beings on this planet and reaching out. So my background and upbringing has been around the church. You know, a lot of us, a lot of people in your listed audience are church-going people. They believe in God, and that is the center of their life. And so my formative learning, if you will, comes through the church, and then you go through education. But we always go back to the church as the primary teacher of all things in my life. And so I cannot understate that, and nor can I overstate it in this conversation, the importance of having that relationship to something that is greater than yourself. In this case, for me, it would obviously be God, and being connected to an institution, church, that allows you to exercise the many talents that individuals have. In my case, being able to be of service to other human beings is something that brings me great joy. The opportunity to be able to travel here in the United States, but as well as abroad in other countries, giving presentations, helping other governments, giving them the benefit of the knowledge that I have been able to garner over the years has been something that has been greatly rewarding for me as well. And so, I'm not a sports enthusiast. I don't have any of those kinds of great stories to tell whatsoever. I was not honored to serve in the United States military like yourself. So I don't have those kinds of stories to tell, but I do tell the story of working at the grassroots level for the benefit of our people and to help them to live out the zenith of their ambitions.
I appreciate that, Mary. One of the things that really intrigued me about you coming on the show is as we fix problems of today, we still must build our communities for tomorrow and beyond. And one of the things that attracted me to reach out to Seat Pleasant is some of the accomplishments that you've made in your journey. Because first, anybody who can be a mayor for 17 years, you've gone through the ups and downs and smiles and frowns of service. But you've decided long ago and been on a journey to not just fix problems that we have today, but to, at the same time, let's retool and rebuild your area for the future. And you've been recognized, globally for being a small town, not a small town mayor, but a medium-sized town mayor, but also building that municipality in that community for the future. So could you just talk a little bit about that work?
Oh, sure. And thank you for that opportunity. So I guess pretty much for the listening audience of 90.1, I want to make certain that I share how we got on this journey of becoming a smart city, the world's first authentic small smart city, because I think it's important. So as you all know, that in 2008, the United States, as well as the world, suffered a global economic crisis. Markets were crashing all over the place. And it caused us back in 2008 to have some serious conversations around how do we weather as a small city. So you were correct, we are a small city. How do we weather the storm when it's almost like when certain people have a cold, other people have pneumonia, if you read between my line. It's right. The same kind of situation, large cities versus small cities. When the large cities have a cold, the small cities have pneumonia. And so how do we weather the storm during those times? And so we had to do some cutting of our budget. So we did a 10% cut in all departments across the board to begin addressing what we believed was going to happen, which was a reduction in the revenues coming into the city. But we knew that that could not be enough. The other thing we said we could not do is continuously tax our people to death. You just can't keep on taxing, particularly poor people. They're already poor. And so why do you have systems where you're constantly taxing those individuals? So we had to address that concern as well. So over the years, I had the opportunity, as you, delegate, to go to various conferences. We go to those conferences, what? To learn, right? And to network and to find out what other people are doing. Well, I happened to go to a particular conference, probably I think it was around 2012. 2011, 2012, I went to a Schneider Electric conference. As you know, Schneider Electric is a global corporation. They had a conference in Northern Virginia. I found out about it, so I went to that conference. Had the opportunity during the lunch break to meet a gentleman from IBM. And during that conversation, he introduced himself, I introduced myself, and I said, now you can imagine I'm an African-American that's wearing a bow tie, and he's an older white gentleman retired from the Air Force, now working for IBM. And so I'm setting up the story for you. So, right. So as we're sitting there and he introduced himself and what he did as a global business partner for IBM, I said, I have a problem with you people. So of course, the first thing that he probably thought of is, oh man, I sat at the wrong table and he's going to talk some racial stuff. And that's not what I want to hear. Right. But I wasn't talking about race. What I wanted him to understand that in the United States, 80% of cities And
Mm-hmm.
this is important because look at how many cities are in Mississippi. Look at how many cities are in Louisiana. Look at how many cities are in Oklahoma. Look at the cities in Arkansas, right? So you have a lot of cities down in the South. Well, 80% of the cities in the United States have populations of 10,000 or less.
Hold on one
See,
second. I think we got a caller here. Hold on one second, man. Hello, caller. What's your question or comment?
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. As we received the news last night on the national news, the population of America, by white standards, have gone back in 8 years, dropped to 40% of the population. Okay, we hear.
What's your question about the topic we're talking about, brother?
Huh?
What's your question about the topic that we're talking about?
Well, the topic y'all talked about is, I don't understand why we shouldn't be talking about the topic of trade among our people. It's like,
most definitely, we're all for it. Let me let the mayor finish his comments, and then we're gonna take some callers after that. Okay. All right. Thanks a lot. Sorry about that, man. I want to let you finish your train of thought before we start.
We appreciate the caller, and I'm quite certain. I mean, we're just getting started on the show. We'll probably get to his question as we get along. So we appreciate that caller for calling in. So anyway, as we were sitting there at the table, I said, look, I have a problem with you people. The point I was making is large corporations. Large corporations in the United States focus their attention on the major cities in the United States. New York, Los Angeles, Chicago, Houston, the top 4 cities in the United States. There's only 10 cities in the United States that have populations of over 1 million. So the vast majority of people who live in cities live in medium-sized to small cities. But we don't get the recognition, or we don't get the attention that those cities deserve. Those citizens are deserving of resources as well. So as we begin to talk, he began to tell me about this program called A Smarter Planet that IBM had at the time. And so over the past few years, I started learning about that. Then in 2016, I was able to convince the city council to designate Seat Pleasant and to start our journey to become a smart city with an innovation village. And so as we began that journey, we began talking with IBM. They began working with us. We went through a roadmap to figure out how we can do this in Seat Pleasant, Maryland, because remember, we're small. Those big corporations are not going to make a lot of money off of Seat Pleasant, right? That's why they're looking for the large city. But on the aggregate, if you get the small cities combining and working together, right, then those revenues can come in. Corporate America can make the money that they need to make, whatever it is they need to make at that time to meet their quotas. But small town USA can have access, right? Because we talk about equity and inclusion. So then those small cities can have access to those technologies into those communities to improve the quality of life of the residents that they serve. So that gives you, I know we'll get into more details a little bit later, but that's how this journey began, is through conversation, having the opportunity to go to conferences, to network, to talk, to listen to presenters at plenary sessions, to go to the workshops and listen to the presenters there, just like yourself. And then you bring that information back to your municipality and try your best to propose and offer new things that will improve the quality of life of the people whom you serve.
Yeah. And give a little context to the size of Seat Pleasant.
So I appreciate that question because, obviously your people in your listening audience probably have never heard of Seat Pleasant. And so that becomes important too. Let me tell you why it's important. Seat Pleasant is on the eastern border of Washington, D.C. So we're right on the border of Washington, D.C. So when you think of Seat Pleasant, you're thinking of one community of 27 municipalities in our county. We're in Prince George's County, Maryland, and it has 27 municipalities. Those 27 municipalities comprise the largest number of municipalities in the state of Maryland. There's a total of 157 municipalities in the state. 27 of them are in Prince George's County. So we look at Seat Pleasant as a business, right? So we're competing with those other municipalities. for community development block grant dollars, all of that kind of stuff. We want dollars just like they want dollars. Well, it makes it even more challenging when you're in the shadows of Washington, D.C., right? So now, how do you compete with the nation's capital along with the other municipalities around? So we are a population of just under 5,000 residents. 21% of our population are senior citizens, but we have tremendous problems and challenges. There are healthcare challenges, disparities that exist within Sea Pleasant. We have over 7% unemployment rate, which is higher than the national average, which is around 6%. We're at 7+% in terms of unemployment. We have about 7% to 8% of our population are on subsidized housing. We're in a food desert. Can you believe it? Again, that's why I wanted to say we're in the shadows of Washington, D.C. So you wouldn't think that you would have these challenges right outside of Washington, D.C., but we actually do. So we're similar to some of the communities that are faced with challenges there in Mississippi. We have some similar challenges, and I think that that's why it's helpful, as you have invited me graciously to be on your show, that we will be able to relate to many people of your listening audience. So some of the challenges that are faced there are faced here as well in our small enclave that we call Sea Pleasant, a smart city of excellence.
You know, and that's one of the reasons, because a lot of times in our community, you know, we have hundreds and hundreds of cities inside of our radio listening audience. And you try to figure out, well, how does a small town, I'm gonna name a few of them, and how does a Utica or a Raymond or a Byram or Clinton or even a Madison or just other areas, how do they compete right next to your capital city that gets a lot of attention, that's on the news all the time for a myriad of different issues? And also in this conversation that bringing you on the show today was because there's some things that even Jackson can learn from. That Jackson can work off of ideas you've had, because you started off saying, you know what, we're not going to just tax our people who already may not be able to pay. Let's reduce the expenses of the government so that we can take those funds and invest them smartly in ways to move us for the future. Talk about that initial conversation about reducing the city government by 10%.
So at the time, like I said, this was, remember, 2008. There was a market crash globally. So I want to put everything into context for the listening audience. And so considering that you have this global economic crisis going on, it trickles down. And we knew that at some point in time, revenues were probably going to be tightened. Some of the monies that we got at the federal level would have dried up. Some of the monies that we would have gotten from the state would have dried up. If not dried up, it would have been reduced. So whereas maybe at one point in time, we were getting $100,000 in community development block grant, now we're only getting maybe 50 to 75. So that's a reduction, right? And so if you're getting a reduction in that, that means there's a reduction possibly in services. So as we moved forward with this smart city, we said, well, how do we look at this thing to anticipate that you're going to have the ebbs and flows of the economy that will impact your services in delivering to your people? You know as well, because you are an elected official, once people start getting used to a service, they expect, no matter what's going on in the economy, they expect that service to be maintained at the same level. And that may not be reality. So what we looked at in terms of a smart city is, all right, let's look at our processes. How can we improve our processes? Well, when you think of a smart city, there are a couple of words that are important for you to understand. And that is connectivity and data, right? So we obviously want to be connected. And that connection allows us to capture information or data. Once we have the data, then you take the data and then you begin to analyze that data. What does it look like? Then you synthesize that data to give you what we are talking about is insights. So now that I have a better insight of the challenges that I'm faced with, so then the team, meaning the executive team and the council and all, we begin to look at this data and say, well, you know what? We're wasting money over here. We can reduce the budget by, let's say, 5-10% in this area, take those savings and put it over here and bolster this side because this side needs a little bit more money. So, all right, well, the police department has a set budget. Well, all departments have set budget, but the police department have this amount of money. But maybe there's an area in the police department that they're not spending money, that we could redirect those dollars over into our public engagement area that would be directly impacting the residents whom we serve. So it's all about how you can be effective and efficient with the taxpayers' money. That's what mine and your responsibility is to be have fiduciary responsibility and become good stewards over the taxpayers' dollars. So we look at this picture of data that's coming in, layering that data, analyzing it, and then coming up with informed decisions on what the insights is telling us. It's what you do in your personal life, right? So in your personal life, you know how much you, your wife, your whoever it is that you're living with, you all look at how much money is coming in, and then you say, okay, we got mortgage or rent to pay, we got the utilities to pay, we got groceries we have to get, we got insurance. The same kind of concept that we do in our individual lives, government has to do the same thing. We should not be spending more than what we're bringing in, obviously. We should not be moving towards deficit. We should have discipline. We should engage our community and say, look, community, this is the budget. The budget is only $3 million or $10 million or $2 million. That's the budget. You, community, tell us what should be those priorities. And that's the kind of things that we did. We talked to the community. We got a sense from the community of what the community wanted. And in doing that, we came up with what we call strategic priorities or strategic outcomes, right? And so we put those in. So I'll just tell you a couple of them. One was improve the financial stability of the city. Expand smart city services that lead to inclusiveness and constituent engagement. Develop environmental and sustainable green plan. Attract, support, and retain anchor institutions. Enhance smart community policing that decreases all levels of crime. Develop and promote workforce training and opportunities for our residents, and promote health awareness and access to healthy food options and cultural and leisure activities. So those were the 7 strategic outcomes. This is what the community wants. This is what they agreed. The administration agrees with this. The city council agrees with this. So now that we have that, then you said in the bio about budgeting for outcomes. So now we develop our budget around those 7 strategic priorities. Again, we're still a smart city, right? So we're still using data. The data drives the decision. So we say, this is what we're going to do because the data tells us to do this. So a real quick example, because I'm not trying to retard the audience, but I really want to.
It's not governing off of feelings.
Right. It's not governed off of feelings.
It's not governed off of feelings or emotions or personalities or egos, any of that.
No.
Priorities, and then you started making decisions based on what the data says those priorities need to do.
Yes, sir. So it's not the mayor's opinion.
Mm-hmm. Right.
It's not the council members' opinion.
Mm-hmm.
It's the collective opinion of everyone based upon the data. So, for example, you have a police department, and let's say you have wards in your city. So let's say Ward 3 in your particular area has a high crime area. Well, then the data is telling us we have high crime. But here's the thing that you need to understand about the data. Crime is not the only data for Ward 3, right? There's other data for Ward 3. There's census tract data. So now we take census tract data. Well, we see that in that ward, there's low educational attainment levels. We see in that ward, there's high unemployment in that ward. So everything that needs to be addressed in that ward is not the police, is my point. So the police cannot be sent there to solve all of the problems. Maybe there's crime problems because there's a lot of vacant properties, right? And there's a lot of shrubberies and trees. So we need to deploy the public works to come into that particular area, trim the trees, trim the bushes, clean up the debris, board up the vacant houses, work with economic development. Let's figure out how we can address the vacant housing. So in Sea Pleasant, what we did is we created an affordable housing program. We put $1.5 million in that. So we started going buying houses. The city bought the houses. We refurbished them, turned them into smart homes. We sold them on the market. And now we have law-abiding citizens living in these homes and they're back on the vacant properties are back on the tax roll. So we're collecting taxes. So we made money off of selling the home, and we're making money off the fact that people are living in them, those houses, producing taxes, and we're lowering crime. So we reduce crime by 30%. In a particular area, because now that house is not vacant. So notice I didn't say anything about the police department in the solution to that. I didn't say anything about the police. I said everything about the data that's out there and how, how we use that data to drive the decisions to help that particular area of our community. That's why this smart city platform is critically important, because it levels the playing field. It equalizes communities that have been marginalized for a long time. And hopefully, now that the United States Senate has passed the infrastructure bill on yesterday, we hope that the Congress will do the exact same thing, pass this bill, release those dollars into the community so we can get access to those resources to level the playing field for all of those communities that you mentioned in Mississippi, as well as the other communities in the South and all over our beautiful country.
You know, and that's why you definitely, we didn't even talk about this in our pre-meeting, but you know, but this is exactly the thing that folks need to be able to hear this and say, hold on, if they can do this in Sea Pleasant with a population of 5,000 people, then I can say, okay, well, Utica, Raymond, Byram, and Terry, you know, and Jackson, and so forth and so on, you know, Madison, other places, even this information that you're delivering today is applicable no matter how big or small your city is applicable no matter how wealthy or poor your city is. These models that you're talking about, that people can just go online and Google it. And I encourage the listening audience, go Google Sea Pleasant, Maryland, and the partnerships they've done with a city of 5,000 people. And these are things that are attainable. And that's why I wanted excited when they brought me and say, you know what, this is who you need to talk to, that has an experience of making these types of changes that we all look for here everywhere. And I don't know how much more time you have, but I will just let you kind of round off, and callers, y'all can call in if y'all want to. Call in number 601-948-5950. That's 601-948-5950. If you want to call in and have a question for Mayor Eugene Grant, let me answer this phone. Hello, caller. Welcome to the show.
Mayor Eugene Grant.
All right.
And DeKeither stamp, right?
Yes, sir.
I want a full oversight committee when this infrastructure money come in. We represent 48% of the state of Mississippi. Therefore, the money distributed should be equally distributed. I don't think we got time anymore to be playing games politically, socially, economically. We got backlog of refrigerators, TVs. We seeing spikes, astronomical spikes in retail, and we got people in the diaspora of the Caribbean and Africa. We are the people, DeKeither. We don't have
appreciate it,
We
bro.
need some comprehensive policy changes. We need to come from this state of mind where we just are stuck in debt. We're stuck. We're not going anywhere. We're not as a people. We're not manufacturing nothing. We're not controlling this now. All we doing is shaking our booty. Everybody's flashing money around here like it's the biggest thing. Except the church don't look no different than the club. So I want to know what these black leaders gonna do. All this $1 trillion coming down here in Jackson looking like this. I want to see some major proof. If not, the real men need to start up, put everybody back and put some make some civil rent and put some folks in jail. If the church you don't know better, you are all fighting in the army of the Lord. That's what you say. You're fighting in the United States military. So all these terrorists, y'all need to y'all step there and realize, hey man, it's time for changes in this country. Your drastic changes economically. They $200 million was given out to the Democratic Party. Ever since this time, we don't know who got that money.
Hey, I'm gonna respond to your question just a second. Let me catch the next call, okay? I'm gonna respond to your question in just a second, okay? All right. Hello, caller. Welcome to the show. What's your question or comment?
Councilman Stamps, can we get the brother? Certainly after things settle down, we don't want nobody traveling if they don't have to. But is it possible to get him here in the state of Mississippi? Invite the mayors across the state to come into some kind of work session and to craft something to keep to where people can hear this information, but also be put on a timeline to adopt some of the things that this gentleman is talking about. Is that possible?
You have a response to that, Mayor Grant?
Certainly, yes. We are certainly open to come down, bring a couple of members of our team to share how we did this and to share with our colleagues there in Mississippi on how this journey could begin. Yes, the answer is yes. But just like we're using technology now, we can always do a Zoom call, to get it started, to have a Zoom conversation, to do a presentation, and then to figure out what would be the next steps. So yes, the answer is yes. That's actually what we do. We do travel around the country in doing this and trying to help individuals to make the transformation. What I appreciate, as Brother Stamp saying, is that anybody can do it. Any municipality can do it. You don't need no $30 million. You don't need millions and millions of dollars. And maybe a little bit later, I'll talk about the process and share with you the process. You don't really need that. You just need to get started. That's what.
Let me say this, Mayor, and I had this exact conversation a little early on today with
yes, sir.
What's killing our community, I said the African American community in black cities, is the normal, local, basic things that's not being done. I mean, when you gave out how you guys resolved the issues in the city, and then you brought up at the end of that I never mentioned the police department. Every elected official in the state of Mississippi now need to be trying to get in touch with you. Because we almost at, how many homicides in Jackson, DeKeither?
Too many.
We almost at 90, I believe, close to 90, 128 last year, Mayor. It's a young lady that's coming out of North Carolina. She was here about a month ago, and she is already working with the mayors across the country. And this young lady trains people on the grant writing, the funding opportunity, and how you got to develop the collaboration in order to access the money. So, DeKeither, I look forward to working with you. I want to connect the young lady in North Carolina to the mayor. And then we need to get these people here in Mississippi. And if we need to do it out in an open field, we got to get this information out.
Right.
One thing, let me say in my closing comments, Mayor, we always, and I said we, the African American community, we're behind the money. We cannot afford to sit around and try to go craft a plan with this kind of money rolling out that can help impact solutions in our community. Thank you all so much.
Thank you. And, to both callers, the first caller that called in, he told it right. The frustrations that he and many and others, we share those same frustrations about sitting down and talking about moving forward. And same thing with Mr. Jones, his comments. And the reason we blessed to have Mr. Grant, Mayor Grant on the call today is because I like to listen to people who have done and are in the process of doing even more. I don't like to, getting presentations are okay. Like getting classes everybody goes to different classes at these conferences. Those classes are fine, but you want to sit down and spend some time with people who've not just taken the class, but they've also implemented these things and is a model for the world through IBM. And he's a black mayor that governs a black city. So it's not like you can't do this. It's not like he's the mayor of New York with, 10, 20 million people. He's a regular small town mayor that has pushed away the egos and the who getting this contract and the who getting that contract to say, okay, let's wipe the slate clean and say, how do we build our community going forward? They reduced their budget by 10% just off the top. Let's just cut the expenses down and then figure out how to not to tax people, to oblivion. And then smartly use the data to figure out how to invest money to rebuild the community. And we got about 10 minutes left to go on the show, Mary. I know I've been talking a lot, but any other comments about what the callers said?
But I appreciate both of the callers. I appreciate the frustration of the first caller, and I appreciated the sobriety of the second caller. I would like to, because there may be some elected officials who might be listening right now. And so I would like to take about 3 or 4 minutes to kind of share what our process was, because I think that that's important. And so, individuals can take some notes right now while I'm talking. And I'm going to share what our process was. And then maybe they could take this back to their council and try to figure it out their own selves. And so the first, it's a 5-step process. All right. It's 5 steps. The first step is identify your existing assets. So when people are talking about the smart cities and stuff like that, the first thing we don't have the money to spend all that. No, first of all, start with your existing assets, because sometimes we have assets that we are not fully using properly. I'll give you a primary example of an asset that everybody has, and it's called the cell phone. We don't use this cell phone for probably 90% of its capability. We probably use the cell phone only to make a call, send a text. Some people may be doing emails and download a couple of apps, and then that's about it. But the cell phone can do a whole lot more. So start with your existing assets. So for Seat Pleasant, our existing asset was our size. Yes, our size. We're small. So we said, well, wait a minute. That's an asset, because if you're small, that means you're nimble, you're flexible, you can do things that a large city cannot do, right? Because of the small size and nature. A ship, if it wants to turn, it has to go out far and make a turn. A boat can turn on a dime, right? So look at the small city as the dime, right? And we can turn our cities on a dime. So the smallness was the asset for us. So we said, well, because of that, then we're the test bed of innovation, right? Well, we're small enough for corporate America to test their innovations in Seat Pleasant. So let's go sit down with Sealy Posturepedic and ask them to donate 500 beds and give it to our residents and ask them to test their beds with our residents. Okay, you get 500 beds for residents, right? And Posturepedic can, Sealy can now evaluate and test their new innovation with their new bed that's coming out. That's just giving you an example of identifying your existing assets. For Seat Pleasant, our size was one of our assets. That, look, we're small, we're nimble, we're flexible, we can turn on a dime, and we can leverage our city as a test bed of innovation. So looking within and seeing what you currently have. Now, notice what I said did not involve any money. I didn't spend one dime in any of that. So when you're looking at what you have, Delegate Stamps, you did the same thing. You looked within. What do I have to offer my people? And you highlighted that, and people said, I like that. You didn't spend any money. You just told them what you could do. Well,
Right.
no money spent, right? This is what I can do. Well, what
Right.
can your city do? What makes Utica unique? What makes you different from somebody else's community that you can offer that nobody else in the area can offer? So that's one. Number two is re-engineer your processes. So we all have processes that we have, but now we may need to re-engineer them. And so for us, we said, all right, well, we got all of this information. How do we take this information and just put it in an existing asset that we have? So it might be an Excel spreadsheet. So we put in all the calls of services and stuff like that, and we just re-engineer the process by putting it in the Excel spreadsheet. We already have Excel. Again, I still have not spent any money, but I'm on the 5-step journey to becoming a smart city. So number one, identify your existing assets. Number two, re-engineer a process. Now we get to step three, which is modernize and integrate, right? So now we're going to start maybe spending a little bit of money. We're going to modernize some of our systems. But by modernizing our systems, we don't have to rip and replace, right? We can take some of those systems and incorporate it with new technologies that coming in and integrate that with the new technologies that we have coming in, right? So for us, what we did was the first deliverable on our journey for our residents, because you got to have something tangible for them to see and for them to react to, was we created a My Seat Pleasant app. Now, a lot of cities have apps, but one of the things that we started doing to create with our app is, let's say you pull out your phone and you want to put in a service request. All right, you make the service request, it comes to us, we acknowledge that we got the service request. Then from there, we tell you that this service request that you've entered in has now been sent to such and such in the department. We let you know every step of the way. That technology exists. You want me to prove it? Go online and order a pizza. Do they not give you every step of the way? So we just modernized our process and integrated the same system that Pizza Hut or Domino's is using, and we're using it for our residents. Now, the unique thing that we're doing, and we haven't finished it, we're still working on it, but the unique thing is at the end of solving your issue, which was fix the pothole or cut some grass or whatever it was, at the end, we're now going to tell you, the taxpayer, how much it costs to do that. Now, that's transparency. That's openness. We're being accountable to you because we work for you, the taxpayer. Now you see how your tax dollars are being used. Oh, yes, ma'am, Miss Smith, we fixed your pothole, and that cost $1,500 to fix that pothole. Wow, now she understands how much the cost of service is of government. The next thing is infuse processes with innovative technology. And that's where we start coming in with artificial intelligence. We had incorporated Watson, IBM's Watson. So now you have a chat bot and you can come in. The chat bot will take about 5 to 6 years to learn the city. And now there'll be natural language learning. So in other words, you'll be able to have eventually you'll be able to, the citizens of Sea Pleasant will eventually be able to have a conversation with Watson about services in their city. So now that's infusing the processes with new innovative technologies.
Mm-hmm.
The last and final piece is the collection of the data resources in a shared service hub. So you have all of these systems out there that's collecting this data, right?
Mm-hmm.
All right, well, where does this data go? Well, we dump the data into what we call a shared service hub. Shared, keyword shared. So that means every department is able to tap into that resource to help them to solve problems for the people of that community. So that's the 5-step process. Identify your existing assets, what makes you unique, what differentiates you from the next community. 2, re-engineer your processes. 3, modernize and integrate. 4, infuse processes with innovative technologies. And 5, collect and assess using a shared service hub with your data. That's the smart city process that we're teaching and showing people how they can transform their community. Once you start doing that, then guess what happens? You start magnetizing the opportunities for resources to come to you. Last example for what I just said is Maryland has 157 municipalities. Sea Pleasant is one of the small ones. Baltimore is the largest city in Maryland. Well, Sea Pleasant got the second highest DOJ award in the state, next to Baltimore. So all these police departments were wondering, how did our police department get this money? I think it's $1.4 million so that we could hire 10 police officers. How were you all able to do it? Annapolis didn't get that money. Other communities that are larger than Sea Pleasant did get that money. How did you do it? I'll tell you how we did it. We leveraged our existing asset, and we leveraged the fact that we have data. So we already had the data. The data was used to justify the need in the application. And because of that, our application was competitive, and we got the second highest award from the Department of Justice at the federal level for our community. We're small, but it doesn't matter that we're small. We have a belief in ourselves. We are confident in what we can do. We are not going to play second string to anybody else. We are just as good as anybody else. We're just small. In fact, the fact that we're small, we're agile, we're nimble, we're flexible, we can move faster than the larger cities. I can make something happen faster than the mayor of New York can. I can make something happen faster than the mayor of Chicago because we're a small municipality. I submit to you, Honorable Representative, that the people of Mississippi can do the exact same thing. In fact, they could probably do even better because there's so many creative people in the great state of Mississippi.
Well, Mayor, I could not have scripted a better show for today. You have truly blessed me as an individual and all 100,000 watts of this radio station and our listening audience. We appreciate you for taking time out of the building and the rebuilding of your municipality to take time just to give us a glimpse of what is possible. And we look forward to a very healthy relationship going forward. I didn't even intend for this segment to go the whole hour, but the information was good. The information was rich. And I believe folks got something out of it because that's what we're trying to do here at Reviving Mississippi. We're trying to bring in successful models from around the world to open our eyes up in Mississippi so that we can revive Mississippi. You're only going to revive Mississippi if you start showing real examples of people who have solved some problems that we have, real examples and that are tangible, that people can articulate them. But he gave you a 5-step plan to making your city into a smart city. So thanks so much, Mayor, for your wisdom and your willingness to share with us. We appreciate you. Any parting words, Mayor?
No, I just want to say thank you so very much for the opportunity. It's just a pleasure when particularly Black people can have a conversation with one another and share with one another. I learn from you all. You all can learn from us. And I continue to believe that if we continue to have these kinds of conversations, I know that we will be able to help revive Mississippi, and Mississippi will continue to be a shining example for our country.
Well, thank you so much, Mayor. And ladies and gentlemen, this is about time is up here on Revive Mississippi. We appreciate everybody for always tuning in. We appreciate Master D, Mr. Jones, for calling in. As always, we appreciate you. And it's been 8 years, Handy. Handy, you been 8 years? 8 years sitting out here every Wednesday night. Now it's time for folks to go to Bible study, but y'all know where I'm going. It's time for some shrimp and grits over at Johnny T's. It's time for me to have a dinner. So I'm going to go on over here. Again, our sponsor for today's show is National Wildlife Federation. We appreciate them for even facilitating these kinds of exchanges. We appreciate Mr. Micheal Jordan and Micheal Jordan Transportation Service for another great sponsorship as well. Go to www.mjstransportation1.com for your transportation needs. Y'all, as I say every week, and I've been saying the same thing, Handy, I don't think they heard me yet. Never let anybody put you in a position where you don't love your own people, because when you hate your own folks, you're part of the very oppression we're trying to lift ourselves out of. I love you, Jackson. I love you, Mississippi. Handy man, get us out of here. There it is.
Well, thank you.
God bless and Godspeed.
God bless you and take care, sir.
All right.